We're going to show you how to estimate the mean from a histogram. Now, first thing we need to do when you're given the histogram is you need to be careful what the scales are vertically and horizontally. What I mean by that is you need to make sure you know what every one little square vertically represents and what every one square horizontally represents. So it's important to work out the scale when you're given the histogram. So I'm going to start by working out the vertical scale. So what I do is I put a little vertical line, and then if you look vertically, you'll notice that every 10 little squares is worth 1 unit. So I then write 10 squares vertically is equal to 1 unit. So what I'm going to do now is work out what 1 square vertically is. So I'm going to divide both sides by 10. So if we do that, we're going to get 1 square vertically is equal to 1 divided by 10, which is going to give us 0.1 units. Okay. So that's what that means. Every one little square vertically is worth 0.1. Let's work out the horizontal scale. So if you look horizontally, you'll notice that 10 squares horizontally is worth 20 minutes. So horizontally, 10 squares is equal to 20 minutes. And again, we're going to work out what one little square is horizontally, so we're going to divide by 10. So that means that 1 square horizontally is going to be equal to 20 divided by 10, which is just going to give us 2 minutes. Okay, so that's important. Every one little square horizontally is worth 2 minutes. Now that we know the scales, we can then work out what the mean is, or get an estimate for the mean. So in order to get the mean, the data is grouped. So we're going to have to draw a grouped frequency table and then work out the mean from that. So the data is to do with time and minutes. So our first column is going to be the time in minutes. That's our data column. And then the first group goes from 0 to 20. The next group runs from 20 to 50. The next group runs from 50 to 100. Our next group runs from 100 to 120. And then the final group runs from 120 to 180. Okay, so those are the different groups. Now, we've got to get the frequency for each of these groups. Okay, in other words, how many cars had to wait between 0 and 20 minutes? How many cars needed to wait between 100 and 120 minutes? So next column is our frequency. Now remember, as we've already shown you, to get the frequency from a histogram, you need to work out the area of each bar. So we're going to work out the area of the first bar. So our first bar is 20 wide, and remember, it's every little 1 square vertically is 0.1, so it's going to be 1.1, 1.2, it's actually going to be 1.25, that's not 1.3, I know the line's a bit thick, it actually should be 1.25, so the area of that bar is 20 multiplied by 1.25. So if we do that, that's going to give us 25. Okay, our next group then, so area of that bar, it runs from 20 to 50, so it's 30 wide, and then its height is 1.5. So its area is 30 multiplied by 1.5. So that's going to give us 45. So in other words, there's 45 cars that have to wait between 20 and 50 minutes in this car park. The third group runs from 50 to 100, so it's 50 wide. And then its height, so its height is 2 exactly. So the area of that bar is 50 multiplied by 2, which is going to give us 100. So in other words, there were 100 cars that had to wait between 50 and 100 minutes. Next group runs from 100 to 120, so it's 20 wide, and its height is 3. So the area of that bar is going to be 60. And that tells us the frequency of that group. There's 60 cars that had to wait between 100 and 120 minutes. Okay, the final group runs from 120 to 180, so it's 60 wide. And then its height is 0.5. So multiply those together to get the area of that bar. That's going to give us 30. So in other words, there were 30 cars that had to wait between 120 and 180 minutes. Now that we've got the groups taken from the histogram and we've got the frequencies taken from the histogram, we can now work with this group frequency table to estimate the mean. So remember, to estimate the mean, when the data is grouped, you need to get the midpoint of each group. So we call that the midpoint x. And to get the midpoint, what we do is we add the two end values of each group together and divide by 2. So we're going to get nothing plus 20 is 20 divided by 2 is going to give us 10. Our next group, we're going to have 20 plus 50, and then we're going to divide that by 2, and then so that's going to give us 70 divided by 2 is going to give us 35. Next group, 50 plus 100 is 150, and then divide that by 2, that's going to give us 75. Our next group, 100 plus 120 is going to give us 220, and then we divide that by 2, that's going to give us 110. And then our final group, 120 plus 180 is going to give us 300, divide that by 2, that's going to give us 150. Once we've worked out the midpoint for each group, we then have to work out f multiplied by x. So we multiply the frequency of each group by its midpoint. So we're multiplying 25 by 10, that's going to give us 250. Our next group, we're multiplying 45 by 35, and that's going to give us 1,575. Our next group, we're multiplying 100 by 75, that's going to give us 7,500. Our next group, we're multiplying 60 by 110, that's going to give us 6,600. And then our final group, we're multiplying 30 by 150, that's going to give us 4,500. Okay, now, in order to get the mean, we need to work out the sum of fx and we need to work out the sum of the frequency column. Okay, so if we add all our frequencies together, 25 plus 45 plus 100 plus 60 plus 30, that's going to give us 260. We're then going to add all our f times x's together. That's going to give us 20,425. Okay. Okay, then to get our mean, and remember it's only an estimate because the data is grouped. So formula for the mean is sum of fx divided by sum of f, and then we substitute in our values, so that's 20,425, and we're dividing that by 260. So and that's going to give us 78.557. And we'll round it to 3 significant figures. So our answer, the estimate for the mean time is 78.6 minutes. And that is to 3 significant figures. Again, obviously I should rule my table as well, and in the actual example when it's presented to you as notes, you'll notice that it's ruled, so make sure we're ruling our columns as well.